So good morning and welcome to a great Sunday, and a great Sunday for me and obviously for Billy, Ray Manson and I, because today we have David Williamson. Pleasure to meet you, David. And, obviously Birmingham Wheelchair Basketball will continue our motivation inspiration project again this year as part of lockdown, because the amount of interviews we've done and the amount of feedback we've had is actually been, so impressive, not just for us locally, but also globally as well. So David Williamson, great to meet you. I've heard a lot about you. I've read through your bio. Before that, let me get Owen and Billy to introduce themselves, and it's over to you. So, Owen.
Hi, David. I'm Owen Lamprey. I'm a lead practitioner for health and wellbeing at a large primary school in Balsall Heath in Birmingham, but also heavily involved in school sport around Birmingham, and increasingly involved in inclusion sport as well, both on a personal basis and related to the job. Pleasure to meet you.
Oh, you too. Fantastic. Thank you.
And Billy, over to you.
Yep. Hello, David. Hello, Andy. Hello, Owen. Great to see you again. I'm Billy Ray, and I'm very passionate about physical activity, sport, inclusion. I drive it in as many different ways as possible. Sometimes as a superhero, as you might see, but most importantly, I think it's about that inclusion and being active and encouraging as many people to be active as possible, because it brings so many benefits to our lives. I think I'm terrible at introductions, so that's probably the best one I could give right now. But yeah, over to David. This is all about David today.
Thanks, Billy. So, David, nice to meet you. Obviously, I've read through your bio, and you've been 3 times HBSA Sports Person of the Year. Obviously, NHSA, is it? Personality of the Year.
EHSA.
Thank you. So, and also, this amazing feat of 30 marathons in 30 consecutive days, which, I've done a few half marathons and the superhero try, and obviously Billy has as well. And Owen this year, we've had at-home superheroes and winter wonder wheels. But to do that must have been, a challenging thing. And obviously the amount of determination and mental, mindset must be incredible.
Yeah, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head, really. It was more, it sounds strange, but it was more of a mental strength challenge than a physical strength challenge. Because I found once or twice I turned up at the start line just not in the right frame of mind. And those were the days where it was hardest. So I kind of learned very quickly that I had to be really focused almost from the moment I opened my eyes up to kind of my morning routine and getting to the start line and getting myself focused and motivated. And that's really what saw me through.
Fantastic. I mean, from your point of view and where it all started, how did it all start for kind of these challenges and these kind of events for you? Where did it all begin from your early days?
I don't want to do a David Copperfield and give you my whole life story. But I had both my legs amputated at a few months old. And one thing my mum was really keen to do was to get me into disability sport as much as she could. And at that time in the early 80s, there were a lot of disability sports clubs, especially in Hampshire. So from a really young age, I was kind of competing in all manner of events. And I think just kind of being shown as a disabled kid, it's okay to be competitive, and it's not just you're turning up to make up the numbers or just have fun, which is important to have fun as well. But I was kind of, my natural competitiveness was really kind of amplified by the other people I would meet, the other disabled kind of people who were taking part in different sports. And then from then on, I kind of started slowly. I started doing Great South runs, and I did a 24-hour push. And ultimately, this kind of crazy idea of, I've done more marathon, I wonder if I could do another one tomorrow, and so on and so forth.
Right. It is amazing. And, I spoke with Billy before about, where we are at the moment with inclusion, diversity, and obviously keeping things going with, as Billy has done with the hashtag NHS Thank You Mile and 1,000 miles. And, being part of superheroes, obviously for the last 4 years, and being involved in that kind of family, where it involves everybody for inclusion, disabilities, and the siblings and everything else. And you've took that into a kind of a next level regards to how you support young people and what's it like to have that kind of feeling that you're actually changing people's lives?
Well, I guess I'd start off by saying I'm not sure I'm changing anyone's lives. I think if I can kind of shine a light down a path, and then they'll do the hard work themselves, and having a kind of family and friends and that kind of support to kind of just give them the jump start to change their own lives. That's far more important, I think. Although, you know, I'll take the credit if I have to. But I've also, ever since I kind of started playing sport, I've really been keen on kind of coaching and motivating. And but I think what's important, really, without getting too deeply philosophical, is you always want to leave the world in a better place than you found it. And in the early 80s, although there were lots of disabled sports clubs, there was no one kind of on TV for kids to look up to have a role model who looked kind of, you know, very, very different, or even a little bit different. So if kids can see me doing a marathon, or kind of see Billy doing, well, everyone sees Billy because he's on TV more than I am. If you're able to do that, and then they'll kind of take up the mantle of really pushing themselves and showing that it can be done. It's just passing it down to the new generation, really. I think that's the most important thing.
I'd say that, and I take that on board, because obviously, you know, I've been involved in sport now for 30 years, so I won't give you my age. But you know, I do find it quite interesting that, you know, coming into discipline for the last 20 years, and, you know, working in inclusion schools, and now that I'm in the specialist college supporting students with complex disabilities, you know, the potential to push young people going with disabilities to play sport is amazing. And the criticism I have, as you said, rightly said, from the early days of the 1980s and where we were with like understanding for disability sport to where we are now is, you know, it has changed. But, you know, I still don't see coaches and young people coming through that are going to support this to carry on for a bigger generation. You know, I have a running joke with, we do an event at the Children's Hospital every year that I'd done before lockdown. And I met a guy who does inclusion cricket. And the funny thing was, he said, "I see you're here again then," as if to say it's the same people all the time doing the same things. But you are right. We've got a potential in young people now that for inclusion and diversity to push them on and be the next, you know, elitist coaches, players, etc. And we're building that generation, so we are in a better place. If it's okay with you, David, I'm going to hand over to Billy now, because I know he's dying to ask some questions. So Billy, over to you.
Well, I think firstly, I wanted to just mention something now. What, you know, just touch on what you was talking about there, Andy, because you know, from my personal perspective, I've recently also joined the National Coach Corps Youth Board, and Coach Corps is a charity that basically propel and give opportunity to disadvantaged young people, whether it's people with disabilities, people that have come from prison, you know, all these different angles, and actually channel the power of sport. And create the next generation of future coaches and inspirers. And I think, you know, there are some pots of this out there, but there's, you know, like you say, it's like the tip of the iceberg, isn't it? You know, there's so much more potential really in, you know, in how to build this next generation of inclusion, essentially, really, you know, and bringing everyone together, because I think, you know, that's the power of it, isn't it? When you can bring you know, those powers together, it has huge impact. So I just wanted to kind of mention that, because you know, in my view, I kind of have seen it, but just maybe there can be more. And I think, you know, if anything, it's about expanding on some of that, but also maybe obviously new stuff as well, which is really important, like you say. So yeah, question wise, you know, I've probably got so many questions in my head right now, but you know, there is one in particular that I really wanted to ask David today, and it's around your, you know, your 30 marathons in 30 days challenge. Because, you know, from my perspective, you know, I always said to you this, I said this to you as well, David, is, you know, it's really, really inspired me, and it's inspired a lot of people, because it's an absolutely incredible challenge what you did. And one of the things was, you mentioned about, you know, the mental resilience, you know, the mental strength that you needed, you know, to help you achieve that. But another thing you did kind of mention was about friends and family around you. And I can remember seeing, you know, pictures and videos of, you know, you had an amazing support network around you. You know, how much did that help you? I know you kind of touched that on that already, but did that come straight? Did you have that kind of set up because you knew that you needed it, or did it come as you was, you know, as you was going through your challenge? That was kind of my first question, really.
Sure. It ebbed and flowed a little bit. And the main reason for that is I did the first 15 or 16 marathons up in London, just because through Limb Power we had access to kind of running tracks and facilities. But the flip side of that is all my kind of family and friends are down in Hampshire, so it made it really tough for people to get up to support me. I mean, a couple of people did. One of my work colleagues kind of got like 3 trains up to London to Crystal Palace and then ran the marathon with me and then got it back. So the first half of the 30 and 30 was really tough for that reason. And then I kind of said, okay, I can't do this, so I'm going to relocate down to Hampshire. So the second half was basically pushing up and down Southsea Seafront kind of 6 times to get the 26.2 miles.
Wow.
So again, that was a flip side because I had all the friends and family around, but I was literally in the height of summer going up and down the beach. And I always likened it to like a 1980s Spectrum platform computer game, because I was going along, I was like dodging kamikaze grannies and kids running after ice creams and small dog. So it was a huge, just a different beast really. But it meant that friends, family, work colleagues, the company I was working for and still am, Money Barn, they were down there. So, and that just made it, although it was physically tougher, it was mentally easier. Yeah. And that meant I was getting up in the morning in a better state of mind. And really, I'd almost say I was kind of the least important person in the whole thing, because I was just pushing a wheelchair for 26 miles every day. It was everyone else who was coming along, supporting me, putting stuff on social media, contacting the actual media. So yeah, that's a very long way of saying it's hugely important.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is still you as well, David. Remember that. I know we can be so modest about some of the things that we do, but remember what you did was absolutely phenomenal when it was you that brought all of that together and that support around you. And, you know, I think if anything, you know, to recognise the impact that had within your challenge is phenomenal, because, you know, I from my perspective, you know, some of the things, especially now, obviously in lockdown, we've not really been able to really conjure up that kind of supportive spirit, you know, in a way. And, you know, and I think that's also why I've not necessarily done a challenge like this kind of myself yet, because I know that, you know, mentally it's probably 10 times more challenging than it is physically, because as we know, we can push and we can keep pushing. But you know, if you've not got that support around you, then it obviously it can, you know, not necessarily help you achieve what you're trying to achieve. So it definitely helps. So let's think of another question for you then. And really, this is on probably the motivational and inspirational kind of side of things. Is you know, with the work that you do, you've mentioned about you know, how it helps you connect with so many other people, especially from the role model perspective. And we know that there is some, you know, particularly young people that you've engaged with, you know, throughout your journey, and you know, you've been a role model to them. But they, you know, from my perspective, and I always say this from my perspective, it's just a way that I always say it, I don't know why. But would you say that they're also your role models as well? You know, is this a sort of, you know, it swings round in circles? Because the way that I find is when I engage, you know, in different events or challenges, and I engage with people, and they turn around and say, you know, you're my role model, but actually, my first thoughts are, well, they're my role model. They're the ones that are driving me to, you know, to want to achieve, not to just achieve this for them, but for me and them, and for all of us, you know, kind of together as well. I don't know if that question's even a question, but I'm hoping that you can kind of, you know, pick out of that and maybe pick some points that might mean a lot to you.
So would I say that the kids are also my role models?
Absolutely.
No, it's all about me.
Honestly, I appreciate that as well. I really.
No, I'm joking.
Be as honest as you can about this. And I think for me, I'm learning from you as well. And you know, as much as I think you've even said on Twitter that I was your hero, but really, David,
Yeah.
like people like you're my hero. You're other people's heroes, and I just feel that it does swing round, doesn't it? It's like a circle of inspiration and motivation when you're engaging in stuff like this.
Yeah, that was it. I just said it with a very straight face. But
I take everything to heart, David. You should know this by now.
I think so. I mean, after London 2012, disability sport was in such a strong place, and for so many reasons that just drifted away. And I think now it very much, we're in a place where we are having to rely on and get motivation and get inspiration from each other. And absolutely. So Emerson, young Emerson, who has a spinal injury, over the last 3 years or so, since his family got in touch with me, watching him in his physiotherapy, and when he came up to London in the wheelchair and was able to do like a couple of laps, so seeing how far he's gone from really a standing start, that's incredible, because you just and it kind of reminds you of reminds me of when I was a kid, and everything was a game and everything was just a challenge and it was fun. And I think sometimes when you're doing fundraising and things like that, and these big challenges, you sometimes get caught up in how big it is and how important you would like it to be. And you kind of forget that it actually it's meant to be fun. And if it's not fun, it's not worth doing in the first place. So I think what I get from seeing Emerson doing amazingly well, obviously there's young Bear, who is far more famous than both of us now, Billy, and is raising like 1.5 million. Right. And I met him when he was really young. On my last 30 and 30, the last marathon, his mum brought him along to that, and at the end she just kind of came up and plonked him on my lap really apologetically and took a photo. So seeing then kind of a couple of years later, and he's got his prosthetic legs, and he's just kind of, just by sheer force of will and that supportive family, he's managing to be far more independent and mobile than anyone thought he might be. You can't help but take inspiration from that. And I've got a really sensitive side, so I get a little tear in my eye, and I think it just reminds me of how powerful this kind of human spirit can be, and to face challenges head on. So yeah, it's a really kind of symbiotic relationship. I get as much from them as they get from me easily. I probably get more, in fact.
Yeah, definitely answered it there, David. Thank you for that as well. Again, truly inspirational and motivational, I believe. And well, I've got another question, and I don't know whether this is kind of. I'll pop the last one, Andy. I do apologise.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
So this is again probably similar on that one, and really going on your experience with your challenge. Obviously, as Andy mentioned, and I'm kind of challenging something called the NHS Thank You Mile and the NHS 1,000 Miles. And what I would really like to do within this is do some sort of immense endurance challenge, but I don't know how to kind of bring that together. Would you, just in a short few words or anything, what sort of advice would you give me to kind of think, outside the box, or what would your advice be? That's kind of my question there, really.
I think my one and only piece of advice would be ask for help from as many people as you need to make it happen. So I've literally got one talent. I'm very good at pushing a wheelchair for a long time and not getting bored whilst doing it. That is all I'm good at. So, and I know that, and I recognise that. So I lent on people like Kira Roach from Limb Power to help organise tracks and help, and then she lent on other people and lent on other people. And so recognise the help you need and ask for it, and ask for it again, and ask for it again. And also use, I think social media is a really powerful tool used in the right way. So when I was doing my 30 and 30, I had people turn up to kind of just be on the side of the track to make sure I had water and everything. who I'd never met, but I had engaged with on Twitter. And so they heard about the story, and then they just off their own back came down. So you should never underestimate, I think, how much people are willing to help if you give them the opportunity to do so. That's the thing, that, you know, there's people in this country who will literally give you the shirt off their back and help in any way they can. And I think during lockdown as well, the whole country has kind of just been hitting the snooze button for like a year and a half. I think people now really want to get out, really want to get involved in something. And if you give them the opportunity to do so, you know, you'll have more help than you know what to do with. So yeah, recognize what you need help with, ask for it, and give the people the opportunity to join in.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm going to take all of that in. I was just literally absorbing that as you were speaking. So yeah, no, thank you so much, David, honestly. And obviously, I'll be in touch with yourself as well, because I might need a bit of help from you guys as well.
I'll really teach myself up here, haven't I?
one final one then, just a little one. Just a little one. On that same note, I've been thinking, you know, and really, I want to get kind of all of your thoughts on this, really, you know, and what you think. And obviously, you know, like obviously, we're doing 1,000 miles. You know, this is what we're trying to achieve. Now, what I wanted to try and do, you know, not separate to it, but maybe to complement it in a way, but in a way that then everyone can engage with it, is set like a bigger mission that then everyone can contribute towards. So obviously, you know, you've got the NHS thank you miles. Could we, you know, would you think it'd be a good idea if I tried to encourage, say, we want to achieve 2 million NHS thank you miles? You know, just an example, just put a number out there. And if you would like to help us achieve this, you know, you could contribute by doing this. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because obviously it's amazing from a fundraising perspective and what it is in its own way. But I think as an activation, it has so much potential. But maybe I've just not really, you know, cottoned on to that, if that makes sense. Do you think it'd be a good idea to maybe create like a challenge where everyone can contribut towards it, if that makes sense?
Shall I go first?
Yeah, go on, David, that's fine. Yeah, don't mind.
So, first of all, yes. And at the end of last year, I was involved with it's a young girl I know called Carmela and her family. And Carmela's favourite superhero is Wonder Woman. And someone figured out that from Carmela's house to Wonder Woman's mythical island is 2,000 miles. So as a fundraiser, there was a team of, I want to say 12 of us. And we all did whatever we could every day with it, whether it's a mile or 10 miles or whatever. And every day we would kind of message into the group chat the distance we had done. And then it all added up. And then by the end of December, I think it was, we'd done the 2,000 miles between us. And it picked up so much momentum that Carmela got a message from Gal Gadot, who plays Wonder Woman in the films. It was amazing. So yeah, it's all you have to do is have, you know, a notepad and write down how many miles everyone's done and add it up at the end of the day. And have a group chat that people, or some kind of inbox that people can send their details into. And then of course, when someone does that, if they've done 5K, they'll talk about it and they'll post about it, and then they'll share it, and it grows and it grows and it grows. So it's, yeah, fantastic. Just come up with a really good hashtag. But yeah, so
what's your thought of a hashtag then, David? Go on, let's get your thought on a hashtag there. You can't drop that one without giving us an example.
Billy, can I jump in there a minute?
Go for it. Go for it, Owen.
I think, not to interrupt the Billy Ray Mansell show, but if you've got 20, if you went for 1,000 miles in 1,000 hours and split that up between people, calculation of you virtually doing a marathon every day then anyway. So then if between you could do a marathon a day, that might work. 1,000 miles, 1,000 hours.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I do. I'm going to write it down. Hold on. Where's the pen?
Thought you would. So 1,000 miles in 1,000 hours.
Actually, I don't need to write it down. I'll watch it back and I'll write everything down. No way. Leave it there. Thank you, Owen. Thank you. That's brilliant. And David.
No problem. David, if I can just come in there and ask a few questions really from the youth side of it and the school side of it. So I'll start off with sort of a youth perspective and my own personal perspective, really. This is now the third lockdown we're in. And I found it quite straightforward to be physically challenged in the first lockdown and do a lot of miles. And we did the superhero challenge. And that was really quite easy to motivate myself. And then in the autumn term, being back at school, I'm a teacher. I found the second lockdown, which we were working through, quite straightforward to carry on that. And then we carried on with the winter wonder wheels. Personally, I'm finding it more difficult to be physically active during this third lockdown. And I don't know if it's because it's after the Christmas holidays or it's just lockdown fatigue. Mentally, I'm quite okay being at home. I don't find that a problem. But to get out there and be physically active, I find that a lot more difficult now. What would your advice be? Obviously, we're going back to school in a week's time on March the 8th. So then, in a sense, our lockdown isn't on at that point. But what would be your advice for people who are still at home to still carry on that motivation?
Well, I think firstly, I completely recognise that series of kind of dealing with the lockdown. First one, especially where it was summer, it was fine. Second, not too bad. And yeah, I'm kind of sick of it now. Even though I'm in a really privileged position and I get to work from home, and you know, I'm a lot better off than a lot of people in the country. My advice to kind of keep that motivation going is, firstly, recognize when you do just need a day off. Don't beat yourself up about it, because we're getting through this whole thing the best we can. But on the days when you are feeling that you can accomplish something or achieve something, just set little goals. A lot of my friends do the challenge where on the first day you do, say, 5 push-ups, 5 sit-ups, 5 star jumps, whatever, and you slowly increase. But I think set yourself challenges, recognize that you need those down days, but also look to the future a little bit as well. So as difficult as it is in a lockdown at the moment to kind of look forward and find something to look forward to, try and set a goal for in 5 weeks' time, and then just think what you need to do to achieve that goal. It's kind of like I was always taught, if you try and eat an elephant in one go, you're never going to achieve it. But if you eat, like, 1 foot at a time and then build up all the way, you'll get there. And I think having a goal and having something to look forward to, for me, that always makes me feel better, because now I've got something in the future that I'm aiming towards, and that just naturally lifts me up and makes me want to kind of start exercising and start getting motivated.
Thank you. I think it's time for me to get me Couch to 5K app back out and get cracking. I read an article you did in the Portsmouth News on your marathons, and you were talking about growing up. So obviously I'm interested in that from a school point of view. And I think you were quoted right. I think I'm quoting you right by saying, growing up, I was never clever enough to be a doctor or a scientist, but I knew I wanted to be in a profession that helped people. For children who are now in primary or secondary school, and maybe they have a similar view, and we'd always try within school to raise their self-esteem within academic subjects as well. But if they are thinking of going into a profession that isn't academic or isn't maybe a traditional profession, what would your advice be for them, particularly if they have any additional needs?
Yeah, that quote was, I think, when I did my first 24-hour push. This is where role models are so important, I think, because if you're going to do something which isn't as straightforward as do your exams, go to college, go to uni, become an accountant, or something that kind of very straightforward path, you really need, I think, someone to look up to or an organization in place. So if you're going to do something like that, first of all, find out as much about it as you can. If you're struggling to find anything about it, ask for help. To be honest, that's kind of my main advice for anything. Don't be afraid to ask for help. because there is someone somewhere out there is going to know that one extra fact that gets you to where you want to be.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for your time. I'll continue to try and inspire myself, the children that are in our care at Clifton Primary in Birmingham. Been fantastic to chat to you, and all the best for your next project.
Thank you. And just, you know, everyone who's in the teaching profession at the moment, so important over lockdown. I don't think people recognise how difficult it was to switch into teaching remotely, and then when you kind of went back for one day and then out again. And I don't think people recognise the huge volume of additional hours that people in education are having to put in. So just thank you for that.
Well, thank you for that. Sorry, Andy, I'll just make a little comment on that. Thank you very much, David. I'll play that to my teaching group when I get back to school, and if I'm ever have the pleasure of meeting the PM, then I'll remind him of that as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Owen. Thanks, Billy. Okay, so I'll come back into the interview now. Obviously, you know, we talk about, you know, and it's been referred to obviously from Billy and Owen about motivation, inspiration, but thinking about the future, and obviously we are in the third lockdown, and you know, and I'll be honest, you know, it's the third lockdown for me and for a lot of the people I work with has been quite difficult. You know, just to, as you say, to keep yourself motivated, to try and get those people to, you know, do some things and be part, especially our community, because obviously, you know, Birmingham Wheelchair Bass, we try and put online sessions to support people, but trying to get our individuals to actually deliver the sessions themselves can be quite difficult. So, because they've never done it, I think the point being is to involve them in a way that they can actually be part of something, because they have that belonging. Thinking about obviously what you do, David, and you know that kind of inclusion, diversity, and that motivation. Why is it so important now for inclusion and diversity to move forward?
Well, I recognise your pain with the basketball, because in the second lockdown, I took over as head coach of sitting volleyball, and putting on Zoom sessions when people obviously are on their own, and trying to get people motivated even to log on is really tough. I'm so sorry, I've forgotten the question.
Why is it so important? Why is inclusion and diversity so important now?
Right, sorry. Yeah, sitting volleyball itself is rebranding itself, or trying to, from being a disability sport to an inclusive sport, because disabled and able-bodied players can play at the same time on the same teams or against each other. I think with inclusion, I don't want to take us down a dark path, but hate crimes, especially against disabled people, are up by something like 80% since the first lockdown happened. And I think that, you know, I don't want to go into the motivations, but maybe it's just people frustrated with what's going on, and they're kind of taken out on the easiest target. As ever with inclusion, the most important thing is education. Like I say, we were in such a good place after 2012. It breaks my heart how that was thrown away. And I remember being outside the Olympic Stadium, and after Richard Whitehead had won probably his 60th medal of the Games, and there were a group of kids kind of mimicking the way he ran, and not as a mocking kind of way, but like he was a hero to them. So in the same way that someone would, when I was a kid, I would try and kind of copy John Barnes going past a defender. These kids were copying Richard Whitehead and how he was running, and they're able-bodied kids. And it was brilliant, because disabled athletes really were heroes. There's no other way of saying it. So somehow, and we've got the Beijing, is it Beijing or Tokyo Olympics coming up?
Tokyo, yeah.
Tokyo, sorry, thank you. We've got another opportunity there for disabled athletes to be really highlighted. What we can't do is fall into the trap of disabled people being shown, if you're not an athlete and winning gold medals, then you don't really matter. And I think that's where the education comes in. It is so important, because I think whenever you're excluding someone from the conversation, then by definition, that conversation is lesser. If we can include everyone in the conversation and include everyone in as many aspects of life as we can, it enriches the whole thing. It's so important, because one of my favorite sayings is that that person is going to have the one extra fact that no one has thought about that will improve things. So I don't think, we shouldn't ever discount anyone, obviously, but inclusion makes things better is, in my head, the simplest way to put it.
Thank you. I mean, I myself have done a few half marathons in Birmingham half marathon. I've done a few 10Ks over the last couple of years doing the Great North and traveling the country. And obviously, being part of something that enriches people to look at what's going on in the community is really amazing. But as you say, there is so it has that swings and roundabouts. And I remember a time we were in the half marathon. We was going home, and I was catching the train because I was in my wheelchair at the time. And at the one point they were talking to my son and not acknowledging me. It's why is it in these kind of times that we live in is that this is still happening? I mean, I understand. We have the stigma and the prejudice and the discrimination, but the future is changing, because obviously through education, when we're teaching more about inclusion, we're having more young people being involved in inclusion and diversity to support their needs and their preferences and independence. But why do you think we still is that just down to education or understanding as well?
Sometimes it's down to laziness, as in mental laziness, and people just wanting to take the easiest route of least resistance. So this might surprise you. Up until 2017, the Brighton Marathon didn't allow wheelchair athletes to take part pushing themselves. And I found that out because November 2016, I applied for the Brighton Marathon. And they said I could, their rules, their written rules, were that if you're in a wheelchair, you can only take part if someone is pushing you. And I was going to do it as a fundraiser. And I think it's very difficult to get people to sponsor you for sitting still while someone else pushes you around a course. So I kind of took it up with Brighton. I wrote about it in The Guardian. We were on kind of news down south. And eventually they kind of relented, and I pushed myself around the track, and because I could, they changed their rules. But they didn't allow wheelchair athletes to take part, and they were kind of hiding behind the health and safety thing. And my point, apart from to big myself up for changing the rules of the Brighton Marathon, is to say that they were doing that because having wheelchair athletes was just too much damn hassle. And it was easier to exclude them from the whole conversation rather than make the small adjustments that might have been needed to be inclusive. And I think that's a really good example for how a lot of organisations think. I think it's a good example for how a lot of people think. So sometimes we really do kind of have to stand up for ourselves and make that inclusiveness happen. I wish we were in a world where everyone would just be going, no, come along, come in, we want you here. That doesn't happen, and we all know it doesn't happen. As heartbreaking as it is, sometimes we have to say, I'm going to be a part of this, you are going to include me, and I'm going to do a good job, and here's why. So I think it's just very difficult. That's my my partner's about to walk behind me there. Yeah, so I think the reasons that organisations aren't inclusive is they just feel it's too much hassle. But perhaps it is an education thing, and they just don't realise how much better their organisation will be when they start to bring other people in. So sometimes I have a very, very small voice, a tiny voice compared to a lot of the people in the world. But if I can use that voice to say, you are going to include me and my community, then I'll do that. I'm not afraid to kind of to stand up and and state that as loud as I need to.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, it's interesting because obviously to hear you say that, and obviously going through the different interviews that I've done now, is that we talk about the 16% of people with autism are only in full-time education. It's other things of, like, I did an interview with Tessa Van Heeden from the Down syndrome, SUDS, and Senna, and you're right, it's down because certain organisations think it's easier less not to include people because it's just as a health and safety thing, and not that they don't want to understand, but the demographics, the logistics, the accessibility, we don't need that because it's too much hassle. Moving on and thinking about obviously your future, what's the future for David Williamson?
Retirement. So this is going to sound like I'm showing off, I'm so sorry. In November last year, I was included on the Shaw Trust Power 100 list, which is the list of the 100 most influential disabled people in the UK, which was a massive honour. And again, for someone whose only real talent is not getting bored of pushing a wheelchair in circles, it was a real shock. And I was on there with real heroes of mine, real people who I've learned from and have been kind of patient and kind enough to guide me along. And I'd like to think that comes with the responsibility that if you're named as being one of the most influential people, then you better damn well use that influence for something good. So at the moment, we're looking to see what happens with lockdown. It's really difficult to plan anything exactly there. Hopefully in April, I'm heading up to Wales to do a 24-hour push with some friends of mine. I have a couple of kind of pipe dreams. I'd really like to set up some kind of foundation. But again, I'm going to need to ask for help from people who know what they're doing there. Ultimately, I'm 42 years old now, since 2 days ago. My hairline looks slightly older. I would like to do one really big inclusive event to kind of go out on before my shoulders kind of give in. So hopefully that's going to be with someone, with Billy, my friend Andy, who runs Play to Give, a charity up in Oxford. I'd like to do just one massive event to almost bring as many people together as we can and as many organisations together as we can. I think especially with charities at the moment, they're struggling so much. So charities need to network, charities need to work together. And if we can do something to bring as many charities, as many people together, and we've been talking about inclusiveness for the last hour or so, and that would be really important to me. I would like something like the Billy mentioned, where you've got a group of people doing X amount of miles. I would really like to be able to encourage people who have never done a mile before and can't think ever that they would. I'd love to see someone do that. I think if you can encourage someone who's never done anything to do a mile, I think that is just as important as someone doing 30 marathons in 30 days, because it's that personal level of achievement which is so important.
Thank you. Obviously, thinking the challenges, and I've always had a pipe dream for a challenge that you might be interested in, and I've always looked at. Well, I speak to motivational sport quite a lot, and they're always trying to ask me to buy a wheelchair racing chair. So, but I've always had this dream to push around the coast of the UK, which is 19,000 miles. So, if you're interested in doing that, Billy, David, Owen, it's something that I would like to promote and push forward as an event that really could challenge the whole country. Because you could get so many people involved to go to be part of some part of their regional push around their coast. And it's something that I'm trying to work on in the future. So have a think about it.
What do you reckon, Billy? Let's put the pressure on you.
Well, firstly, David, to you, you know, absolutely, you know, count me in, you know, count me in, and with Andy, I think that's a brilliant idea. Is there a way that we can, you know, merge obviously them together? Obviously, you mentioned about the personal, you know, gain of doing a mile. Is there a way that we could mould in the NHS thank you mile? We know that over, you know, in a way that we can do a mile to say thank you to our NHS, take off the reliance on the NHS as well, because a lot of people probably want to give back to the health service, to the key workers, the emergency service personnel. It doesn't have to be the NHS thank you mile. It could be the emergency service thank you mile. It could be anything. It could just be the thank you mile. You know, it could. But I think, is there a way that we could kind of merge everything that's been mentioned, you know, into one, you know, inclusive challenge where we can encourage everyone to move a mile their way, but all come together, like you say, you know, whether it's going around the coast, you know, it could be so unique. And I think, yeah, you know, maybe we need to have more conversations on this, on how we can mold it together, bring our ideas together. You know, what ideas do you have? You know, I like listening to what yous are saying now, because I feel that it's actually, you know, it's brilliant. They will be phenomenal challenges, and actually they will inspire people because they're being led by role models, you know, yourselves, in a way that to encourage them to take that power into themselves, but also contribute towards such an important, you know, challenge and message in the process.
Thanks, Billy. Thinking about, obviously, David, you're down in Hampshire, and yeah, I've got to ask, because obviously you talk about South Sea seafront. My wife is actually from Southampton, and her mum actually lives in Portsmouth on Southsea, so I'm surprised I've never bumped into you. I mean, we've been down to Southsea for that many years. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Because she's not far from South Sea seafront for many years, which is, you know, we've been there, going down there nearly every year. It's just been difficult this year because obviously, you know, last year because of lockdown. Before you go, and we always finish with a quote, and Billy knows this because I've done an interview with Billy. What would your quote be for motivation and inspiration, and why?
Oh man, you put me on the spot here. In the Shaw Trust list, I think I put something like, oh, I can't remember. It was something about living life to the last minute. I think it would be quite simple. And it's not my quote, but I can't remember where it's from. But it's, if you can dream it, you can do it. And before I started doing marathons and Great South runs and 24-hour pushes, I would kind of just daydream, like, wouldn't it be good if I did this? Or wouldn't it be good to do a marathon? And then I think I just dreamt about it so hard, eventually I got bored of dreaming, and I just went and did it. Actually, no, I'll change that, sorry. Anything is possible. Absolutely anything is possible if you try hard enough.
Thank you. David, it's a pleasure to meet you, and hopefully we'll continue this conversation about challenges and moving forward together. Billy, as always, a pleasure to see you and talk to you. And Owen, take care, and hopefully I'll see you again on the next interview. But have a great day, guys. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and thank you very much. Stay safe. Take care. Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.